Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Fortitude. Again, we're here at the Achord Ranch in Louisiana. Thank you, JJ and Elizabeth, for opening this thing up and giving us the opportunity. Today, I'm so grateful to have Collin Dunn, Todd Langdon, Chris Big Daddy Horrell, and Brent Achord with us. Now, you've seen these three actually on. If you've been watching and following us, you'll see episodes of these three with their testimonies. So before we get started, if you would, please go and hit that like button, share this video, subscribe to this video. It helps us get out to all the algorithms. You can find us on Forerunner Productions, on YouTube, and Let's Talk Fortitude on Spotify and iTunes. Fellas, thank you so much, my brothers. And listen, we're here to talk about, this is a conversation. Just so everybody knows, this is not scripted. There's no script. Did anybody get a script about this?
No.
No script. Everybody's asking me about what we're going to talk about. But it's organic, it's fluent, and we roll with it. And before we started rolling, if you guys don't care, and listen, we're rolling, but guys, I just want y'all to know that if something gets said or you don't feel comfortable about something, say, hey, time out, and Chad can mark it and we'll edit it out, okay? This is not live. This can be edited. We can take anything out. But we want you to be open and honest. That's what we're here for. We're here to bring honor and glory to Jesus Christ and bring hope and encouragement to anybody out there that's looking for that brotherhood or that band of brothers that you guys have here that Todd and I are finally able to start tapping into. So before we got started, we were talking about, and we're going to get to how you all met and how that, but I think it's what you all said, and we'll go back around. And Collin, I'd like to start with you. I had expressed that I had been watching Victor Marx, and JJ and I had talked about it. He had turned me on to a book, being Todd, John Eldridge, and actually JR, I got to give him props too, because before JJ even recommended it, JR was talked to about it because he had used that in his men's ministries, teaching men. Wild at Heart. And it all talks about the masculinity that's been lost within the church. And and I think that's one of the things that has drawn, just like you, Brent, that you had mentioned, that kind of drew me and Todd in too, is you guys are doing that here. And I think that's one of the reasons why your discipleship programs and your community here is so strong. And so, Collin, if you would kind of go back and reiterate what you were saying, when we started talking about that.
Well, I was thinking about it after I'd commented and listened to you guys talk. I don't know so much that the masculinity was lost in the church as much as there was not masculine men loving Jesus and talking about their love for Jesus, which I think is, which all my partners now, we all hunt, we fish, we play baseball, there's coaches, it's all different walks of life that we're actually sharing the good news of Jesus Christ and what God has done in our life versus maybe years ago when I was growing up, where I didn't see a lot of that. I didn't see real men loving Jesus. So I think that's where I'm at, and that's my take on it.
I've heard Collin's, you guys have too. I've heard Collin's testimony. Collin gave his testimony in my retreat. It's a powerful testimony, and just so these guys know, but just so you guys and that are watching know, this man can also preach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
This man can preach.
Loves to talk.
Absolutely not.
He's complete opposite of me and you.
That's right.
Daddy. So Todd, what were you? I agree with what he's saying. So what were you? You had some pretty good insight too.
Well, my insight comes from having non-exposure to the church life until I was 45. Then getting baptized, and at the time, the only thing I had for a group or a home church was WFR live stream, and I started seeing patterns and real men that had love for other men that was reaching back and bringing more men along. But the common denominator that I kept coming up to was Jesus. And the answer, when they went to it, was Jesus. Why am I reaching back? Jesus. Why am I reaching? It all came from, sourced from the love that Jesus first showed while we were still sinners. Christ died for us. And that's, to me, is everything. And now, having walked along with these brothers and had each one of the four sitting here played a vital role in my walk and getting my walk straightened out, I couldn't imagine sitting anywhere else right now other than right here, 16 hours away from home, having a conversation with brothers.
That's awesome. You got to take out your driver, bro.
So
this par 500.
yeah, I want to go a different direction than even when we were talking off camera, like thinking about what Collin said. And, you know, I think when you think about masculinity in church, I think that I don't know how to say it, not the men of church were probably looked at a little different in my opinion. And so when I had a view of who a man at church was, it was a perfect business type, like not the baseball coach, the construction guy, the workout guys, the men that I look at as, hey, these are men, the guys that were fighters back in the day. Like, you didn't see, those guys weren't willing, if they were with Christ, they weren't willing to talk about it. Now I see in the last 3 years, since the retreat ministry for me, it's like, wait a minute. You can be a man's man, in my opinion, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, and be with Christ. You can be the baddest dude in Monroe and be with Christ, and be willing to openly talk about that and not be viewed as, man, that dude.
I'm with you.
You know, I had a thought, and I said it off camera, like of a geek. I hate to say it like that, like a Bible thumper, like. But when you find out, man, wait a minute, the dudes that are around the retreat ministry and not just at one church, multiple churches, you realize, man, there are some dudes that love Jesus and love their family and treat their family certain ways, treat their kids certain ways, and walk with Christ. And I think pre-retreat, I probably wouldn't have felt that way. I would have probably felt like, well, they go to church on Sunday, but are they with Christ?
Right.
And man, you start realizing real quick, like, they're not only with Christ, like, they are Christ in their form.
That's good. That's good.
And I'll add to that too before Brent goes, is like, what is a real man?
Absolutely.
A real man is a man who loves Jesus,
That's right.
who loves his wife, and who loves his children and teaches them and disciples them, and to lead his household in a godly way. That's what a real man is. A real man don't hunt and fish and play ball. A real man loves Jesus and loves his family.
That's right.
All that's first, everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
It's way down that list.
And I believe we were raised by maybe the greatest generation we've known.
Amen.
Our dads,
Yeah.
our grandfathers. So we're not saying, you get what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
awesome dudes, like men. But it was also a generation that didn't really talk about feelings, don't show weakness, be tough. And look, wouldn't trade that for the world. But
Nope.
you don't realize, man, my dad's struggling. You don't realize other grown men are dealing with issues. So then when you become an adult and get punched in the mouth, you think you're different, right? And I just think it comes out, it's love for Christ displayed loving on other people. Yep. It's loving your brother, loving other men, the love of Christ coming out, you know.
You ever thought about this? You ever thought about seeing a grown man cry? Like if you saw a grown man cry, a man that you would hang out with, if we're going to name a Rooster, a Corey Taylor, would you ever think you'd see a grown man cry? That somebody you would consider a man. And man, that changes things when you can see a grown man show feelings, a grown man cry, like, and you cry not from like hurt, you cry from joy.
Yeah.
You know, you cry from work. Like I get caught up in worship songs and tears just start flowing. You know, or you hear a testimony, it's like, it's not even my testimony. And I just sit there and I'm like bawling for what he's went through. And when you see other men in that situation, you're like, man, that wasn't okay. You know, the men that would cry like that, to me, previous, you would think, man, that dude's pretty weak.
Yeah.
You know?
I couldn't tell you how many times I've been by myself working out to worship music and just bawl my eyes out right in the middle of it. Just
Absolutely.
lay on the floor. I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Well, that's the one thing that it did for me is it turned an unhealthy outlook on crying into a very healthy, and seeing that the tears aren't only sourced from weakness, but from good, healthy tears are sourced from pure joy. And the only place that I've been able to find pure joy is in the Word of God, around starting to surround myself with the like-mindedness that's sitting here with me. So it's been tremendous is an understatement.
Just being honest, I mean, it was the love of other men shown to me that drew me to Jesus.
On that, those men, how did they approach that aspect of reaching you and empowering you, educating you, pouring into you? What did that look like as you walked?
Well, being loved on, being prayed over, seeing how they treat other people, seeing genuine joy, like recognizing that's different, man. I don't have that. That's a peace and a joy, because you can't fake that. And you know, our two greatest commandments, I mean, love God, love people, right?
That's right.
So, yeah, and that word love, I mean, I never understood that word until I understood what happened on the cross, right?
That's right.
And to see that displayed through other people towards you,
that
goes back.
you may never cross paths with.
No.
Because I mean, me and you never crossed paths until you extended that love and that same being prayed over through the retreat ministry. But it was somebody who was walking, reaching back and saying, I understand where you've been, but now let me guide you through this. Let me show you through the actions that I have,
There's a word here.
that I've learned.
Intention.
There you go.
Prime example. Before I'm walking with Jesus, 2016, I meet Collin, I guess, at a ballpark. Mm-hmm. Was going through some marriage issues, and 30 minutes after meeting, he intentionally says, hey, let's go hang out. Comes over to my house, and 3 hours later, basically tells me his story, guidance, counsel. Like we'd never talked 5 minutes.
No.
And some of the wisdom and just the intentionality and I won't say concern, but like just the genuineness, like, man, this is different. I mean, and he probably to this day may not even know, what that meant. I didn't know that was the first day we met. I just remember the council.
He does. He remembered.
Yeah.
He-
It was funny. I was coaching my daughter's softball team.
Yeah.
And he come hollered at me through the fence, and he said, "Collin Dunn," and I said, "Yeah." So I went over there, we shook hands, and told me what he needed to talk about, and so that was at the time I didn't think of it as, hey, Brent needs my help. Like that never crossed my mind. It was like it was just I want to be a friend. I want to share the mistakes that I had made, and for somebody else not to have to walk through what I had to walk through.
And I think there's a word for that, in my opinion. It's called kingdom-minded.
Ooh, that's good.
And we heard, like, we were talking about it in life group, like, I think that changes when you become kingdom-minded. You notice things that you may not when you're not in a kingdom mindset. And I think, to me, in the 2.5 years I've known you, like, you walk around with a kingdom mind, and everybody doesn't do that. Everybody doesn't have that. Like, that could have been an easy conversation to say, like, y'all finish up right there, go your separate ways. But when you have, it's almost like when somebody tells you, and you hear this all the time, and I've heard it for years and never thought much of it. But when you ask somebody how they're doing, and it's very easy to say, man, I'm good. And typically I'm good means, man, I am not good.
I'm not good.
But when you're not kingdom minded, you hear that I'm good, and it's like, all right, man, glad to hear. And you go about your day. But to me, when you're kingdom minded and you hear that I'm good, I may not stop you right then, but there's going to be probably a text message coming that says, hey,
how you really do it?
I got that I'm good, which means you're probably not good. So, I'm here for you.
So last week, I went to church. I come home, got it on the life group, Sunday morning. Then I watched Bill. Then I flipped over and I realized Larry spoke at WFR. So I turned it on, and Todd had sent me a text message or something. He said, did you know Larry spoke this morning? And I said, I did, I'm watching it now. And he didn't say anything else. And I got about 5 more minutes into that, and I sent him a text message. And I hadn't talked to Larry since I interviewed him when he was in Athens. And I sent Todd a message. I can show it to you. I said, he's either really tired or he's carrying something really heavy. Todd had already seen it, and he said, I think he's carrying something heavy. It wasn't about 20 minutes later in his sermon, he broke down and said his daughter was had stage 4 cancer. Yep. Now, listen, Larry and I aren't super close. But Larry has one of those spirits, and I'm going somewhere with this. He has one of those spirits that everybody he meets, he draws in. I got to say, all 4 of you guys are like that. You have a spirit about you that when people get around you like me, you draw us to you. You have that heart, you have that spirit that draws people to you. I had no idea Larry was dealing with that. Because while he was over in Athens, nobody knew it, and I hope I don't lose my reward, whatever, for his one in heaven. But periodically, I would send him a message. I'd say, man, I'm praying for you and Kathy and your team there in Athens. Hope, And especially when Israel went to war, I can only imagine how many more refugees started flooding into that place while they're there. I'm good. How many people went to Larry before he spoke that morning? Hey, Larry, how you doing, brother? I'm good. I wonder how many times he said, I'm good, I'm blessed. I guarantee he didn't tell anybody, I'm not very good, my daughter's got cancer. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because I go to my boss. You're a district manager. I mean, you own your own business. So, you know, you guys know. You're the same. You know, everybody here knows this. I try not to be that guy, that employee, that every time I stub my toe, I go to my district manager. Whenever I stand in his doorway or I call his phone or send him a text message, I want him to be, wow, that's John. I better see what he wants. So when we go into that attitude around us with our brothers, the last thing we want to do is be that, what we call that guy that cries wolf.
I'll even go a step further on that is a lot of people look to us. I mean, we've been walking a while, and we have the opportunity to help a lot of people. And preachers deal with this a lot. You help so many people that you're scared to talk about your own junk.
Exactly. That's good, Collin.
And it gets you in a bad place. It puts your marriage in a bad place. So it's important for me and us to surround ourselves. And I know we're going to talk about discipleship eventually, but I have to surround myself with people that will speak life into me. But I have to continue to be vulnerable enough and never think I have ever arrived, because I will never arrive.
That's good.
And as long as I think that, and that's us every day waking up and saying, I got to be kingdom minded. Not just for others, but for yourself, because you're no good to others.
That's good.
On that one, you, Chris, really played a crucial role in facing issues that I was denying in presenting on Seven Deadly. You never said anything directly to me. It was the presence that you bring to a situation that made me really dive deep into what I had prepared for in dealing with lust and not truly facing where I stood with that. But as soon as I presented, it left me at a point where I knew I had to go home and face my wife that I was being unfaithful to through lust. And as soon as that happened, she extended the grace of Christ immediately, having taken it to her and said, this is going on. Forgive me. Either way you go with this, I'm okay, but from this point forward, I'm going to walk this out, and anything that's going on, I'm coming to you as my partner in this life that I promise to love, honor, cherish till death do us part. And from then on, our marriage has changed in such a dramatic manner that we can look at each other and say, all right, what's going on? Now that we have faced up to this point our biggest hurdle. So that's a gratitude that I haven't been able to bless you with yet. And I wanted to make sure that in this, face to face, that blessing was given to you.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
You hit me to say, on mine, you did that. You did the same skit at mine, if I'm not mistaken, because it played a huge part in me too. So you guys don't realize. I mean, that's just like.
It's not that they don't realize it. They walk such an intentional an authentic walk of Christ and extend the humbleness that Christ extended. That it's, and I've experienced this, so I'll speak to it. Maybe somebody sees it different, but there's an embarrassment when you're presented with that.
Oh,
Almost an embarrassment.
I'm with you.
That somebody would say such a thing
called
about
humility.
you. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The humility that's extended among this band of brothers, and that I've seen it over and over and over again. So humbleness, humility, authenticity, it's
going back real quick. We all know it. It's biblical, right? Confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. It's that comfort and understanding the love from all of us, to know that I can confide and I can confess that and come out with it. Going to your wife,
right.
confessing that, what happened. Your faith was strengthened by the grace shown from her through Christ.
I mean, Jesus says the humble will be exalted.
And don't get lost, like, when you talk about that either, don't get lost that for me, that was somebody else showing me that it was okay to talk about my struggles in those situations. So because of what I went through, if we're talking about the retreat ministry, it was to be able to play a certain role. It was because I've seen, hey, this is a vulnerable situation where it's okay. And not only okay, it's okay because your story or what you've walked through may actually impact somebody else. Mm-hmm. So it's because I was impacted in the same way at a previous event that led to the opportunity to tell my part of a story during those two events.
Right.
And you know what's crazy? That's where you had an impact on us, and both of us have done that same thing.
Yeah.
We've been able to go back to the retreat and be part of that same section of the retreat.
And that's called discipleship.
And it's even and it's kind of unintentional. So I'm glad you said that. Discipleship, let's go there. I'm one that I believe that everybody needs a Barnabas, everybody needs a Paul, and everybody needs a Timothy. And there's certain times in our life that each one of us will play that role of all three of those at some point. And I know that there's been times that I've been a Barnabas in a Paul's life. I've been a Paul and had a Barnabas in my life. And you know, whenever I came back into the fold and got out of the desert, I felt like that Timothy again, man. I just wanted to be that sponge, you know, just build into me, build into me, build into me. So I think that's what we look at when we see you guys, man. We see the community you have. We don't necessarily put you up on a pedestal. We don't worship you.
Please don't.
But but what we see is Todd and I, and this morning, the very last verse in Galatians where we were, don't envy your brother. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that I struggled with after I come to the retreat here. I envied what you all had.
5:30, is that right? 5:28.
Let me get my glasses off so I can see it.
But
It's 5:26, Galatians 5:26. Let us not become conceited, provoking, and envying each other.
And see, that's what I did. I was envying what you all had. Because I didn't have that, and I wanted it so bad. But you can't. And the one thing that JR brought to my attention is, John, and we're talking on the phone because it's funny, we were both dealing with the same garbage that week, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he just called me out of the blue, and that's just how God works. And here we are, both of us.
Battling the same battle.
Gimber had told him the same thing he told me. And then here we get together, and we're like, yeah, it's amazing how that works, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But one thing that JR told me is, John, the relationships that these groups, these different men who have these communities, it's organic. It's not man-made.
That's right.
And so when Todd intentionally called me, this is crazy. And we had talked a little bit on Facebook, and whenever he come to the retreat and was going through what he was just telling you about, he sent me a message. He said, John, I'm off of here. Here's my phone number. I'm off of Facebook. I'm not here anymore. He hasn't been on there since. Then he called me one day and he said, hey, let's meet halfway. So we met at Dunkin' Donuts one morning, and 6 hours later we went home.
That's right.
So, hey, come over to the house. And ever since then, once a month, I make a trip 2 hours down to his house and meet with his church group.
Or me and the wife come up.
Yeah, him and his wife came up and had dinner with me and my wife. And it's awesome. And it's not something it's just organically happening. And so if you guys would, I've talked enough. This is about you, not about me.
Can we take a break?
Yeah, Chad, let's break. So what I want to do now is I'd like to, let's talk about discipleship and how maybe you guys have played those three different roles, Barnabas, Paul, and Timothy, and maybe the unintentionality or the intentional part of it, and how that discipleship has built and grown over the years. Because I don't know. I know how far back was your first retreat ministry? And was that when you first come to know the Lord, or was that after you come to know the Lord and that just when it really clicked for you and took off? And let's just kind of elaborate and encourage one another.
I had been going to, let me quickly back up. Was raised in Baptist church, right? Not going to sit here and tell you I had a relationship with Jesus Christ, but there was a foundation there, and wanting to do what's right. Relationship wasn't sought after. But about 2015, when Buck Commander started, Rocky Kingring stayed after me to come. And that was my awakening to dudes chasing after Jesus, but no full surrender. But I realize now he was putting those guys in my life at that moment to prepare me and help me for what was to come. But then in 2019 was my retreat, and that was full surrender, fall on your face. Just experienced the Holy Spirit like I never had before. So in my opinion, August 2019, 4 years.
How soon after that did you notice God was bringing guys into your life and was building your community around you?
Then, about that time, because, like we've talked about a few times before, went through a divorce in 2018 that it was a dark time, not much hope. And the guys that I had met through Buck Commander and who had become friends swarmed me, prayed over me, cried with me.
So how did you know about Collin to reach out to him?
Well, we can back up. For a couple of years, we had been going just drinking coffee. Me, him, a couple other guys. That morning, when I sat down in October of 2018, we have a 5-man group text, and somebody sent a text on there about going drink coffee. That distracted me for a minute to leave what I was thinking about doing. And one of those guys was him. To answer your question,
Chill bumps.
God's timing, but God.
Listen,
But
man.
God, man.
You feel see another man cry.
shake you to your core. But to now look back and see what God was doing, to tell you I realized it in the moment, I didn't. But I can look back now and, I've made the mistake of saying, man, if I'd only gone to a retreat sooner, And I realize now, I was on the retreat I was supposed to be on.
God's timing.
And the guys that were on, and everything, what he prepared and the things and the people he put around me to get me, for all practical purposes, a bunch of those dudes saved my life through Jesus. So yeah. And then to see, sanctification has happened since then, and just continuing to be discipled, turning around and discipling others.
You take those moments, it's those little seeds that are planted throughout Brent's life. But you look what he's doing now with his high school baseball team.
Mm-hmm. Tremendous.
I ain't gonna be able to finish without crying.
I was trying to figure out who was going to cry first. It was getting pretty close as Brent was getting over there. He was getting there.
How many guys you have showing up? You've been doing this for how many years now?
A little over a year.
A little over a year?
Yeah.
I thought it was 2. All right, a little over a year. How many guys you start with?
4.
How many showing up on a regular basis now?
12 to 18.
High school athletes that he's speaking life into every day. And I've had the opportunity to be able to go share a little bit with them, and Chris has. And you realize the generational changes that are happening?
Exactly.
Backwards and forwards. Because the kid
Sharper than me.
that's being not only sharpening you, but the kid who's being poured into, in turn, is going to go home with what's being poured into, and either knowingly or unknowingly pour out over his parents.
Mm-hmm.
That they're going to see a change. Well, why has he changed? Well, it's because of X, Y, Z. It's because of this man who's showing him true love and authenticity of Jesus. It's going to change the family.
It just, not to make this about me, but what I've been blessed with my community, how can you not share that? How can you not share the gospel? How can you not, the love shown to you? I realize now the game of baseball has nothing to do with me teaching a kid how to pitch. God's given me a platform, and I wasted it for so many years, and I'm not going to waste another day.
That's good.
And the biggest thing for me, like I alluded to earlier, I didn't realize my coaches, who were the most influential people in my life outside of my parents, I didn't realize they struggled. Mm-hmm. I want these kids to know real. I want them, they know my story. Mm-hmm. They know y'all's story. I try to get people in there, that can show them and tell them here's life without Christ, here's life with Christ. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Chris, when you and I talked on your podcast, or on the podcast when you were telling your story, golf played a huge role and interfered with a lot of what you were doing with your family. It was I'm not going to say it was a God, but it was. I mean, it's what you love to do. I mean, it was, and you've mentioned that this morning, that it's a thing of the past now.
Yeah, it was definitely an idol. I don't know.
Not
if
a
I
God,
would say it was
but
a God. It was definitely an idol.
You're right.
And a very unhealthy idol. And for me, when you talk about like how does, and I forget how you asked the question, but how do you get from when did you go to the retreat, or however you started the conversation? And so one thing that I've changed, and I talked about this in my testimony with you, is my thought process on coincidences versus divine appointments.
Right.
And I used to believe that coincidences just happen. Like, how does, and for me, my walk, I've had, you've been to youth group when I was growing up, been to church camp, but I was never with Jesus. I was definitely never in a relationship with Jesus Christ. But there was a series of coincidences that started in 2018. I'm not going to remember exact dates. I didn't bring my book to have them wrote down. From a Facebook message to a conversation with a old acquaintance that I helped get a job, to like from that Facebook message to that acquaintance to that the person I sent the Facebook message coming to be the pastor at our church. And through those divine meetings and divine appointments, you look back and it's like, man, God was starting to line things up for me way before I went on the retreat. And it was by the way God was placing people and things in my life. And when you go through it, you may not even, like, I didn't even realize, like, I just thought this is kind of crazy. I just Facebook messaged this guy 6 months ago. Now he's coming to be our pastor. And, you know, now you look back and it's like, man, that was 100% a divine appointment. So when you talk about golf was 100% an idol before I went on that men's retreat. And this year, like, I've probably played 7 or 8 rounds. When before I was playing 4 times a week, every week, no matter what was going on. Golf came before, church, life, family, anything. And it's when I realized and how Brent and I became such, like, Brent's one of my closest friends now. And he gave his testimony for the very first time, if I'm not mistaken. Was that not the first time?
First retreat, yes.
First retreat, on my retreat, was the very first testimony. And pretty quick in the opener, he talked about his dad being his idol. And he mentioned a little bit later on that he wasn't that same idol for his son. And that's when it hit me like an absolute ton of bricks. That I 100% at that point would have never thought Gavin would say I was his idol. And if you asked him, like, well, who do you think is your idol? Who do you think is your dad's idol? He would have said 100% golf. Like, golf came before everything. And it was that first, I have it wrote on the original book I got at the very first retreat, like, would Gavin say I was his idol? And it was, later on I wrote no. And I have golf, like, golf was my idol. I idolized it. I idolized the game, I idolized the group. And I still love the guys in the group, like, but I would miss anything and do anything to be in that golf game, because I felt like I had to be there. And grew unbelievably great relationships out of it while pushing my family to the side. And where I really thought and noticed how bad of an idol it was, my son was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome in 2019, 2020. And he doesn't hold it against me. He actually doesn't even think about it. We talked about it. We just got back from Kansas together. And he had 10 weeks in a row where he went to treatment for Tourette's on Friday afternoons. And that's my golf time. Like, I didn't go to a single one. And when you look back, and I'm like, well, why didn't I make a single meeting? Because I was on the golf course. And it didn't matter, like, Jesus wasn't, not only Jesus, my family, golf was the most important thing to me. Prior to listening to that first testimony, that's when my change started to happen. And it was like just sitting there thinking, man, I've put golf above everything in my life. Like, I wouldn't go to hang out with my brothers if they went to something and I had a golf, like, not even a tournament, just like, I would feel, well, I can't miss my golf weekend. Like, I'm playing golf this weekend, you know? So, but man, God put some things together. And as I sat in that retreat and I started looking back going, you know, when I got to that retreat, I got to the retreat thinking, just like we talked about, like the masculinity side, I got to the retreat thinking, man, I'm going to go do this. So I quit hearing about it. At that point, I was already doing a Bible study with some guys that had been on it. And, you know, it's hush hush. You can't tell anybody. And I got to that retreat thinking, gosh, let me get this over with. So I can be in the know for I can be in their cult, you know. And that was my thought process. And man, since that, and I mean, even that weekend, like I could sit back and look at the divine appointments that got me there to that day to say, man, God had lined up so many different avenues and people to say, hey, you need to be here on this time. And like Brent said, it's 100%. If I would have went any earlier, I wasn't prepared. And I was supposed to go on the COVID retreat, which was Corey Taylor's retreat. He was giving, and up till like I think maybe Saturday, we were still having the retreat. COVID had literally just happened. The women were on the retreat, and they shut it all down. And so I even think then, I don't think my heart was ready in 2019. If I'm not mistaken, that's when it was. We ended up going in 2020, I think.
Yeah.
So, but man, just the differences in coincidences and divine appointments. And I use that, I say it all the time when I hear people talk, it's like, you realize that's not a coincidence. Yeah. Or I'll joke around and say, yeah, that's just a coincidence. But it's not. Like, my appointment was set up through a divine meetings with certain people at certain time to say, hey, you need to be here. And God's timing is all throughout John. When you read John, it talks about, and even Jesus says it, like, my time is coming, my time is near. Like, he knew to the second when he was going to be taken to the cross. And I 100% feel like everything to get me to where I am now had been set up to the exact moment I was supposed to be on that retreat, to the exact testimonies I was supposed to hear that would alter my entire, and I would say alter my entire life path. I mean, it is, my path now is, and my path through my family and everything is completely different since that retreat. Not even in the same realm.
Let me say this right quick. We all know this verse in Romans. They exchanged the truth of God for the lie and worshiped and served the Creator, the creature, rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. That was a lot of us. That was him, obviously. But now, 180 degrees, the exact opposite of that is his life. Everybody who knows Chris Horrell knows the Creator is over anything created today.
So Chris, just so you know, when you posted those pictures of the deer that your son shot, now I gotta be careful. I went back to your testimony.
You try to make me cry.
And when I saw that boy holding those horns up in front of him, man, I just said, good for you, man. You got your daddy back.
Oh, he's my best friend.
You
There's
got
no
your
doubt.
daddy back.
One of the strongest testimonies I've ever heard was Gavin's.
Yeah, that's something people,
14-year-old kid.
that's something, that's a whole
That's 'cause
nother
of a change you
podcast.
saw
Chris
in his
goes
dad.
into that, and
So I wanna present something. At what point, since we have all met,
don't
or,
stop. Y'all keep going, Chad.
or
keep going.
made a
Don't
connection
stop.
through the men's retreat. What point did discipleship after the retreat, post-retreat, what point did it become a critical? Because I've seen it just in the short time that I've been exposed to the men's ministry, that it become a crucial point. Hey, from this point, here's how you can plug in. I've seen it grow since 2020 or since 22. I've seen it grow since then. Was there a point before that hey, we need to start addressing discipleship after the retreat?
I think that's grown in the last couple of years. I think intentional emphasis has been put on that, because I do think that was a missing piece in earlier retreats, is the go forth, But I think that's one of the stronger things that has come recently.
It has. So I'll back up a little bit, talk about my retreat experience, I guess you would say, and then lead up to the today's discipleship. But I was involved in church, pretty involved in church. I mean, not to the extent that I am today, but when I went on my retreat, and I went on a retreat, and I don't know if it was 15 or 16, so it's been a few years. But I was in a house church, real close-knit group when I went on my retreat. But I'll back up a step further. In 2012, I went through a divorce. And I won't go into all my testimony, but I was searching. I was searching for something bigger than me. And I knew I had been saved. I grew up with a very loving mother and father who, and we didn't go to church for, I think, all the right reasons. But I knew what love felt like. I knew what unconditional love felt like. I'd been exposed to this man named Jesus. Didn't have a relationship. When I go through my divorce, I'm at a point in my life where I'm searching for something bigger than me. Discipleship at that point was one guy who, I'll back up, after my separation, I was living in the world. I was still going to church. I was still searching for something bigger than me. But I had started surrounding myself with some guys that I wasn't even pouring into at the time, or they wasn't pouring into me. It was just that divine appointment that you're talking about. Had no idea what was coming. Me and Josh Hudnall we had a little church softball team, and I went to play with them and trying to get more involved. And Josh Hudnall, we got through playing a game one night about 8 o'clock, and we sat on the tailgate of the truck, and he started asking me questions, and we started talking. I was telling him how I was living, and it was after midnight that night when we stopped our conversation. But it started changing the trajectory of my life. Just that one conversation. Him being intentional. Him being kingdom-minded. Then it got me going in a direction toward Jesus. Then I went on a retreat, and I had started working on myself before that. But I'm going to tell you, and I think this is why God has protected the retreat ministry so well, is there's something so spiritual about that weekend. One is you get yourself away from the world. You cut out all the distractions. And two, you have just so many men who's pouring into one another. There's not an activity that happened on my retreat that spoke to me that changed my life. But when men put their hands on me and prayed over me, changed everything. I felt the love of God so real in that moment. It was unmistakable. Coming out of that is when I wanted more. Not just I wanted more of Jesus. And what I did that weekend, or where I got that weekend, was forgiveness. Like, I could not go any further with my walk until I forgive myself and at the time my ex-wife. Like, that was, I was useless. But it gave me the opportunity to recognize that. I had men speaking into me that was where I was at. I drove in. When we got through the retreat, I went to my ex-wife's house, stood under her carport. I asked her to forgive me and told her that I forgive her, and that was the start of what I would say my walk with Jesus. Really, that's when I started worshiping my Creator. Mm. Now, through many retreats after that and discipleships and what Brent was saying, the retreat ministry, there was always been Bible studies and there's always been a push for discipleship, somewhat of a push for discipleship. But I'm going to tell you, the retreats outgrew the go forth really quick because it was there's so much good things that happen on retreat and everybody's going. And so the retreats outgrew the opportunity after the retreat. So then we created opportunities, and basically that's what discipleship is pouring into others and having them pour into you.
Y'all connect the dots there. One man's intentionality, Josh Hudnall, to have a conversation with you, indirectly or directly leads you to be intentional with me. Mm-hmm. Indirectly or directly, I'm giving a testimony that Chris Horrell. None of this was planned.
Coincidence.
Todd, John,
Yep. There's
you could maybe even make the statement, if Josh Hudnall isn't intentional with him, none of the five of us know each other.
Right.
right. That ripple effect. We talked about the ripple effect on the conversation that the three of us had. And if that ripple doesn't happen, nothing past that, it doesn't happen either. So.
Well,
but that goes back to kingdom minded too. Like, you could sit here and say, man, that just happened. No. It just happened to be, all those things just happened to line up that started with Hudnall and Collin. But when you have that kingdom outlook, it's like, man,
mm-hmm.
it makes your
look
reverence.
What God sets up to change our life, you know?
And all that, everything that we do and try to do is and this, I get a lot of my stuff and I listen to Joby Martin a lot. God's miracles is on the next step of obedience, or mm-hmm. His miracle follows our next step of obedience. I bash that. He says something like that. He says it a lot more elegant than I do.
I've stole what Brent says, and Brent, I love the way it sounds, but when you look back, he's playing checkers and we're playing chess.
Yeah.
You know?
Opposite.
We're playing chess and
we're playing checkers, he's playing chess.
Yes. That's not what I said. There you go. He's playing chess, we're playing checkers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
we can't fathom.
Yeah, not even.
We've kept you guys here, man. It is late.
We do appreciate.
Wow. I do want to tell y'all something that I had planned on. I have never given my testimony before. I've just never really given it. And I had planned on doing that on this trip. However,
appointments.
Well, I started writing it down. I broke it up into 4 different sections. And Chad, I'm getting ready to wrap this up. I want to make sure we get these guys out of here. This is a weeknight.
Sure, I'll cue the outro music.
So just give me a minute. So I started writing down the first section, and I was an absolute wreck. I was wrecked. And I mentioned this in the last podcast. But really, even though I'm not ready to do that now, I am going to do it later because I need to work some things out. But what it has done, and Collin, even though you hadn't come on and give your personal testimony on the podcast, I've heard yours in person. it gives me a new appreciation, an understanding, and a compassion, and an extreme, deep thankfulness for you guys coming on and sharing on my podcast, because I know what you had to go through to get there to point to doing it. Because it can stir up a lot of old emotions, a lot of things that you wanted to forget, that you want to table or put off to the side. But I'm a firm believer, man, that somebody, Bill Dye told me on the podcast, he said, John, and I never dreamed Bill Dye would tell me this. He said, John, you can reach people that I can't reach, that nobody else can reach. You can reach people. And it's the same with everybody in this room. And I am so thankful that you guys took time out of your day today, you're away from your families this evening, to do this. And I hope that all four of you will come back on. I know you guys everybody's super busy.
Like I said, always on call for Jesus.
I'm never too busy talking about Jesus
That's right.
And as long as you
and what he's done in my life.
And here's the thing,
John,
man.
don't lose sight of the fact that the platform he's given you, the mouthpiece you have, and what you're doing to share the gospel and bring some of these testimonies into people's lives. That's obedience.
This morning is the first time that I felt really free to speak in any of those Bible studies. Were you in the last time I spoke up in the Bucket Commander, dude, I don't know if y'all could hear it, but I could see my chest. I mean, y'all could probably hear it. I was probably trembling. And and here's the thing, and Todd and I have talked about this, and again, it's not that we put y'all up on a pedestal, it's respect that we have for you guys and your walk with the Lord, that when we speak, we want to make sure that it means something, that we really have something to say, not to just
I have that same
to be
fear.
chattering.
What that scripture of Paul where he's talked about anything you've seen praiseworthy of me, put it into practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my mind comes from in that same statement. In regards to, we see what is praiseworthy among the men that's pouring into us, and we're taking it and putting it in place into action in our community, and in the same intentional and authentic way pouring into our community to grow them. And that is actually where John and I's connection has sourced and then grown from. So that is a blessing for all of you to carry in how y'all have poured in, and we're pouring out in the same way. So we come back and get poured into some more to pour out.
That's a blessing that the retreat ministry has. That's the avenue that it gives people the opportunity to, one, get out of their comfort zone. Obviously, I've been way out of my comfort zone on retreats. And it gives it's an avenue, it's a platform for us to share the good news of Jesus Christ.
Number one.
Yeah, I know we're about to sign out, but I keep going back to James 1, 2 through 4. Consider it pure joy. Everything that I experienced, every ditch I put myself in, I'm thankful for because of the blessings in my life now. You guys, my wife, my kids, just so unworthy of the blessings. And I'm thankful for those trials that opened
trials
my
produce
eyes and
endurance.
took the scales off to
That's right.
witness the blessing.
So I have one quick fire question for each one of you. It's the same question, so whoever goes first, you're kind of getting the short end of the stick because you're not going to get a chance to think about it like the last person. So Collin, I'm going to give you the short end of the stick.
Great. Short
He's
guy
the
gets
preacher.
the short. No, I'm not. either.
And be very careful how you answer this because of your wives if they watch it all the way to the end. If you could view a sunset anywhere in the world with your wife, where would it be?
Montana.
Big sky. Todd?
Mine, there's a tower stand on the property where I work that faces west, and it's above the tree line, so you get to see it all the way to the horizon.
Oh, wow.
So that's it.
Mine would 100% be on the beach in Perdido. That's her favorite spot, and I love the beach, but she loves the beach and the waves, so I would sit right on the beach and watch her with her right there.
Yep.
Destin, Florida. We love the beach too.
Man, I've seen some beautiful sunsets and sunrises, but I got to tell you, being on the ocean where it's 365 degrees, nothing but horizon around you, and it's a beautiful clear day, and the seas are calm. To watch that sun set is amazing.
Now, I'll say this. I just got back from Kansas, which I've never been. And, man, it is a different terrain than
Isn't
what
it
I'm used
amazing
to.
how different places you see it?
Holy cow.
Yep.
We got to sit, and it was actually watching the sun come up, but I got to sit in what I would view as the most beautiful spot to watch a sunrise. And I was in a deer stand with Gavin, and I'm telling you, it was absolutely breathtaking. I mean, you're looking over a cliff down into the valley, and it's just like the ocean. When you say that, you know, what I noticed there is you can see for as far as your eyes will let you, because for the most part, it is flat as all get out. Mm-hmm. But man, when the sun starts setting and you're looking across that just openness, it is extremely beautiful.
Well,
Now,
just so
that's not where my wife would want to go.
I like to watch it come up.
Yeah.
I like to sit on the beach and watch
that's
The
cool.
sunrise.
the day.
Hey everybody, just so you know that these guys are trendsetters. Over 99 or over 95% of all those answers are front porch or back porch. And we didn't get one front porch or back porch in this. So that
Very
was
good.
good.
Very
Hey, again,
good.
everybody. Hey guys, please, thank you so much for coming. And if you get a chance, please give a big thank you to JJ and Elizabeth for opening
Absolutely.
their doors to us here. Hey everybody, please go to Forerunner Productions on YouTube, and you can go to Let's Talk Fortitude on Spotify and iTunes. Also, forerunnerproductions.com, and at the website there you can learn more about what Chad does. Also, forerunnerproductions.locals.com. If you believe in what we're doing here, you want to build into it, you want to give, there's a way there that Chad has set up for you to be part of it. But Chad's involved in a lot of theater, or not theater, but movies, set design. He's acting, he's writing. He's actually got his first short film is released. It's not available. I say released, but hopefully once the movie thingies are over, what do they call them, Chad? Festival. The movie festivals are over.
We'll run its festival circuit, get all of its awards, and then we'll show it to everybody.
Yeah, and we'll show it to
There you
everybody.
go.
It's called The Music of Eric's on. Todd saw it. And
Excellent.
It's
Excellent.
really good. And he shot it on a $1,500 budget at Liberty University.
Nice.
It's really
Talent,
good.
man.
So, hey everybody, thank you so much. Listen, if you need a church, if you need somebody to talk to about the Lord Jesus Christ, please reach out to us in the comments section. Email me. Reach out to me. Private message me on Facebook. I'm real easy to find. It's John Garrett. It's Jon. You'll see this beautiful mug there. Private message me. We'll get you set. We've got community everywhere, and we'll get you set up with somebody. But more importantly, we hope that you know Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.